Hey Sneak Peekers, I'm Gavin, and tonight we have a very special episode in store for you. First, Harrison will be sharing his thoughts on the newest film in Rian Johnson's Knives Out franchise, Wake Up Dead Man. After that, Caroline spoke with a professor of psychology here at UT to investigate why audiences continue to resonate with superheroes even when it seems like an oversaturated genre. And finally, Bridget is bringing us an interview with Dave Porter, the composer behind TV legend Vince Gilligan's newest critically acclaimed series, Pluribus. You don't want to miss it. Last Sunday evening, the Los Angeles Police Department confirmed that the legendary director Rob Reiner, along with his wife Michelle, were discovered dead in their home from an apparent double homicide. Investigators have since arrested the couple's youngest son, Nick Reiner, as the primary suspect in the investigation. Nathan J. Hochman, the LA County District Attorney, confirmed just hours ago that Reiner will be charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The Reiner family has been open about Nick's struggles with substance abuse in the past, with both Rob and Nick collaborating on a loosely autobiographical film titled Being Charlie in 2015, inspired by Nick's journey to becoming sober from methamphetamine and heroin in his late teenage years. Given the shocking nature of this tragedy, along with the rumors that have already arisen as a result of the public nature of the family's past struggles, we at Sneak Peek would like to avoid contributing to further media speculation in the wake of this deeply tragic event. Instead, we'd like to take the opportunity to celebrate the lives of Rob and Michelle, along with the tremendous impacts the couple had on the film industry and their local community. Rob Reiner started his career in entertainment as an actor, starring in a few smaller roles as a child before breaking out on Norman Lear's All in the Family. Reiner played Mike Meathead Stivic, Archie Bunker's liberal son-in-law and often punching bag. After leaving All in the Family in 1978, Reiner began to work on the now classic This Is Spinal Tap. From 1984 to 1992, Reiner shifted his focus from television to film, releasing Spinal Tap along with other notable classics such as Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, and A Few Good Men. During this time, he met his future wife, photographer Michelle Singer, on the set of When Harry Met Sally. The couple claimed that falling in love on set inspired screenwriter Nora Ephron to rewrite the film's original ending in favor of one where the two characters ended up together. By 1993, Reiner sold his production company, Castle Rock Entertainment, to place more of his focus on activism. He would later go on to co-found the American Foundation for Equal Rights, a nonprofit organization whose advocacy work for legalizing gay marriage in California and Virginia helped set the legal precedent cited by the Supreme Court in their landmark ruling in Obergefell v. Hodge, which federally legalized gay marriage in 2015. Rob and Michelle continued to fiercely advocate for LGBTQ+ rights, and Michelle produced a slew of documentaries bringing attention to other controversial political topics, such as the Iraq War and the rise of Christian nationalism. Michelle also produced Rob's final film as a writer-director, This Is Spinal Tap 2, which was released in theaters in September of this year. For this week's recommendation, I think there's no better film to honor Rob and Michelle than When Harry Met Sally, the movie where their legacy together first started. It also happens to be one of the greatest romantic comedies ever made. Unfortunately, some politicians have decided to take advantage of the tragic deaths of Rob and Michelle to criticize the director's career in political advocacy, namely President Donald Trump. Trump posted on his Truth Social account less than 24 hours after the body of the director was discovered, claiming the director reportedly passed away due to a, quote, mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome. We'll let that quote speak for itself. But thankfully, we have Rian Johnson's recent film, Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery, to call the president an ass for us, allegorically speaking at least. So without further ado, here's Harrison with our review of the newest Benoit Blanc murder mystery.
Hey Sneak Peekers, it's Harrison, and I just saw Rian Johnson's new film in the Knives Out series, Wake Up Dead Man. The film features yet another murder mystery story to be unraveled by the Southern superstar detective Benoit Blanc. This time around, the story follows a young priest named Father Judd, played by Josh O'Connor, who finds himself the primary suspect in the murder of the town's only other priest, Monsieur Wicks. John continues the trend of using the franchise as a platform for airing out and addressing contemporary political division. Whereas the original Knives Out dealt largely with immigration, and Glass Onion took a stab at the egregious world of tech bro capitalism. Wake Up Dead Man seems to mediate on radical evangelicalism. The character of Monsieur Wicks clearly represents a Trumpian figure who co opts religion in the pursuit of expanding his own power. The film's ensemble cast consists of a tight knit group of churchgoers known as Monsieur's flock, all of whom represent various ways in which Wicks abuses his religious authority to exploit those around him. But grand allegory aside, Wake Up Dead Man functions as a gorgeous expansion of the format established by the two prior films, both in terms of technical precision and character driven storytelling. With two Knives Out films under his belt, Johnson has the mystery formula down to a cleverly deceptive precision, delivering a genuinely thrilling mystery that still felt like a subversion of his past two films. And as a result, he takes the opportunity to hone the technical bravado of the franchise. Wake Up Dead Man features gorgeous cinematography from Johnson's longtime collaborator, Steve Yedlin, incorporating numerous stylistic sequences that help the third entry stand out as a unique and important piece of the franchise. Johnson also course corrects from largely Blanc-driven Glass Onion, allowing the audience to spend almost a third of the film with Father Judd just before the detective arrives. And while this may sound like a risky move on paper, the result of developing Father Judd before the mystery begins leads O'Connor to arguably the strongest performance in a franchise full of powerhouse ensembles. Judd's conflict between his loyalty to the church, his hatred of Monsieur Wicks, and his desire to put the community's faith back together leads to my favorite scene in the entire Knives Out franchise, when Father Judd pauses his investigation to comfort a lonely woman with prayer. Between the heart at the center of this film, its thrilling technical style, and above all, its genuinely engaging mystery, Wake Up Dead Man should assuage any doubters of the Knives Out franchise. 3 films in, Rian Johnson proves his Benoit Block mysteries still have the capacity to grow and evolve, and personally, I can't wait for the next one. Let us know your thoughts on the film at Sneak Peek TV on social media. Wake Up Dead Man is in theaters and available to stream on Netflix now. Thanks, Sneak Peekers, and we'll be back after this break.
In the spotlight of James Gunn's smash hit Superman, there have been talks about what In the spotlight of James Gunn's smash hit Superman, there have been talks about what aspects of superhero movies seem to escape the oversaturated post-Endgame abyss. Superheroes have been a staple since their role in World War II as figures of hope, and have since transcended numerous media forms, captivating audiences and aspiring generations alike. From comic books to animated TV shows to ever-expansive cinematic universes, a simple question remains. What factors have allowed superheroes to transform from stories and wartime propaganda into modern cultural symbols? What makes us consistently seek out these stories, and what contributes to superhero films' slow decline or periodic resurgence? To answer these questions, we interviewed fellow UT professor Kirsten Bradbury to tell us how basic psychological theories can contribute to superhero trends.
how children see superheroes and how they identify with them, I think is a very interesting question. It's a developmental question, right? So we have to think about the fact that children change over time. Uh, when do children start becoming interested in superheroes? Well, we have superhero PJs, right, for little bitty kids. There are certainly lots of times when even a 3 to 5 year old would put on a cape and pretend to be a superhero jumping around the living room, that kind of thing. But then as the kids get a bit older, I think that there's a lot of gender identity stuff that goes along with superheroism in the way that it's presented. So traditionally, anyway, we have a lot of little boys identifying with Batman and Superman and those kinds of characters. Some of the characters are even seen, I think, in cartoons and in other forms of media that are really aimed at very young kids. And so I would expect that most children have some exposure to the superhero concept quite early. But some of them seem to get much more into it than others, right? So there's a lot of individual variability. One of my nephews was wildly into superheroes throughout his entire childhood. And it definitely seemed to be a good guy, bad guy thing for him, that there was a way in which it's kind of an oversimplification or sort of a black and white form of morality, right? Kind of an all or nothing, oversimplified way of thinking about the way that ethics and morality work. You want to be the good guy. You want to be the hero. You want to be the one who saves people, who rescues people. So it's a very pro-social kind of a concept. Now, that said, I think kids can also pretend to be supervillains and that they do have that experience as well, but that it doesn't have as much of the same sort of internalization, right? The internalization of the identity, a lot of the time, this is sort of our best self that we're trying to think about.
Consistent identification and childhood familiarity aren't the only factors necessary to become staples of the superhero genre. In fact, we have noticed new, darker twists in superhero characteristics. Our original figures of hope and dignity have since been met with a rise in anti-heroes, or vigilantes, and villains that have transformed from a single maniacal threat to more realistic plots involving insider government corruption. Taking a darker tone worked for The Dark Knight, with many critics praising its departure from the past, more giddy portrayals like Batman and Robin. But there are limits from straying from the typical characteristics of a superhero. When the Snyderverse took on a darker tone with Man of Steel, many critics valued its grounded portrayal at first, but after Batman vs. Superman, as well as the Justice League, people began to desire the former interpretations of Bright Superman, claiming that Nolan's influence raised the allegorical stakes, leading to Snyder's film containing signifiers of importance without having anything much to say, according to the New York Times. But why do these shifts work for some and not others? Is this due to the style of the heroes themselves or something greater? This darker attitude may seem like the studio's way to differentiate from typical overused motifs of their early phase films, but some believe we can actually attribute these tonal shifts to the creation of plots that mirror the growing political instability and global conflict our world faces today.
This concept of the sort of lightness or darkness, the depth of the sort of moral questioning and that kind of thing. I think it's really interesting that in times of social strife or trouble, when we're struggling or suffering, what we might really be interested in is something that is reassuring, right? Something that is a distraction, something that says, maybe even harkens back to a day that people believe was here, that maybe wasn't actually realistically here, but was a time when things were simpler and when people knew right from wrong, that kind of thing. And so I think that we find that when things get morally complex in real life, we like our morality to get real strict and simple in our movies a lot. And so that could be perhaps one of those things.
As new technology emerges and cinema continues to change, the main thing we can count on for certain is that superheroes will remain present in our time. Whether they are portrayed as saving graces or vigilantes of the night, symbols of them remain the same: hope, dignity, and inspiration for generations alike.
Hello, sneak peekers. This is Bridget Tooley, and we are here interviewing Dave Porter, composer for Vince Gilligan's newest Apple TV Plus show, Pluribus. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Bridget?
I'm good, getting through finals mostly. So I feel like Pluribus has a very uniquely haunting feel to it with the score. So I wanted to ask what some of your inspirations and what styles you drew upon to develop that tone.
Yeah, so I think at the start, in particular, in the first episode where we're setting up the craziness of our world, right? I definitely enjoyed thinking back and going back towards some Hollywood sci-fi music of old. I think there was a wonderful opportunity for us to be expansive and big and dramatic in a way maybe that we haven't been before to this degree on a Vince Gilligan show. And there's definitely for me, shades of the Twilight Zone, a little Twin Peaks in there, a little great examples of Bernard Herrmann and all the classic film scores because I wanted us to feel comfortable to enjoy the crazy first episode in particular. And then as the show moves on, of course, it changes gears many, many times, and the score has to follow along. But I think we're working and finding our way creatively and musically to create what I hope when you sit down and hear you'll think of as the music from Pluribus.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely noticed some of those influences you said. I was thinking of Twin Peaks when I saw the first few episodes. So, kind of going off that, the show changes in tone a lot as the episodes progress. So, I wanted to ask if there were any episodes or sequences in particular that you found difficult to score or that you particularly enjoyed, either one.
Yeah, for sure. One of the biggest, the most biggest challenges, I would say, of working on this show is that it changes on a dime. And no situation is what you necessarily think it's going to be, and no character is static, right? They're all evolving and changing, and you're learning more things about both each character and the environment as a whole all the time. So the score has to have this flexibility about it and has to be able to adapt right along with it. And that's been a fun challenge and an exciting challenge. And it's taken me a lot of different places, for sure. One totally crazy moment that was in the episode I think that aired this past week was a scene in Las Vegas, which is a dramatic fantasy, it turns out, without giving up too much away. That is deeply rooted in a Vegas vibe, right? And I got to channel my inner John Barry and do some of that kind of score, which I've never really done before, and had so much fun doing it. So that the show is giving me all kinds of fun opportunities to stretch my legs and go new places.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the diversity of the sound that's in the show. Something I thought was really interesting, I read in another interview that you said that you specifically made the choice to not have a distinct difference in the music between Carol and the others. I wanted to ask if you could elaborate on that choice and why you specifically chose to blur those lines, because in the show they're portrayed in such stark contrast.
Yeah, they are, at least for now. I think that the what's great about Vince's take on this genre, right, and his whole thought process behind this, is that there really are no stark contrasts. There's no black and white here, and what we're talking about thematically so much is precisely the gray areas in between, right? Carol is a hero, but she's not a lovable hero. She's not, she's not a superhero by any means. She's a human. And by contrast, the others, as we call them, the hive mind, is, obviously terrifying and creepy, but there's a lot about them that's positive too. And we're always looking to confuse the issue, if you will, right, and make it less stark and less black and white, and explore those regions in between. So yes, particularly musically, I'm taking care not to take sides, and I want the music to be able to, again, be flexible enough to show all the different nuances of both Carol and how much we love her and how much she drives us crazy, and the others and how much they terrify us and how much we can also find them maybe even a little seductive.
Awesome. And kind of going off that regarding the voice of the hive mind, in the main theme and at various other parts throughout the score, you have this kind of menacing choir that's like a cappella. Could you walk through the process of how you develop the tone and the language of that collective hive mind?
Yeah, for sure. And again, it has to be many different things. It has to be at times scary and at times not, and maybe even exciting. But I did know, I think, from very early conversations with Vince Gilligan and our team, that human voices were going to be a really great way to help tell this story. Because at the heart of it, what we're talking about here is really, it comes down to as basic as what is being human, right? What's involved in being human, and what is interesting and fascinating about being an individual human, and what is interesting and fascinating about us collectively as humans living and working together. And so for me, there was really no orchestrational choice, right, that would be more human than the human voice. We all have one. Some of us have better ones than others, but we all have voices and we all use them, and they're such indelible part of how we survive and a part of being human. So I'm using the voices for everybody. I'm using voices singularly for Carol. I'm using voices in groups for the others. But on the other hand, I'm flipping that around sometimes too, and I'm using them in conjunction, and I'm using them in ways that are scary, but I'm also using them in ways that are uplifting and positive. But the result, hopefully, is that it all feels very organic and human and natural.
Awesome. And kind of on the topic of using voices and using different sounds, I've heard of composers using like random objects to make sounds in their scores. Did you use any unique objects in the scoring of Pluribus?
Hmm. Not actually as much as I probably have in some of my other shows with Vince Gilligan. We did an awful lot of that in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I think the foundation of this score is the voices and the orchestra. Although I did have, I can't help myself. I'm always plinking around with certain stuff, and particularly some interesting percussion elements I've been using. Later in the series, you'll hear a lot of boom whackers, which are basically a bunch of PVC pipes that you get to bang on that have different pitches. That worked really well with the orchestra, and I've been enjoying those.
Awesome. And regarding Vince, considering you've worked with him for so long, how has your relationship with him shifted over the years? Are you able to kind of like predict what he's going to do at this point, having worked with him on so many different shows?
Absolutely not. I have never ever, and I'm just as surprised as everybody else when these twists and turns come along in these stories, and always amazed by them, and always think, wow, they've really painted themselves in a corner here. How are they going to get out of this? And then they always do. If there's anything that I've learned is to no longer question it, just to run with it. And in terms of our relationship, I've been so blessed to know him for so long, and not only Vince, but so many members of our team. They're family to me. They know my children. I spend more time with them sometimes than my own family, and they're just some of my greatest friends and creative partners in so many ways. And I'm just so thankful for them, all of them.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about film and television as a medium is that it's a collaborative art form and the bonds you form with the other people you create things with.
Well
Um,
said.
Considering I think this is your first time working with Vince outside of that Breaking Bad universe. How has your approach to scoring Pluribus been different to your approach to scoring Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, etc.?
Yeah, exactly right. We're coming up on almost 2 decades of working together, believe it or not. But this is the first time since the pilot episode of Breaking Bad that we're starting totally fresh with a whole new universe. Obviously, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul go lots of different places and have a lot of different creative twists and turns to them. But at their core, they had something that they all shared. Whereas this show was completely new. So we really actually did take a lot of time to talk about how this show can be different. And we really wanted to plant our flag in the ground, especially to those who were very familiar with Vince's other shows, that this was something very different and that we were trying to achieve something very different. And that meant, for me, musically trying out things we never had done or wanted to do on the other shows, but also even more fundamental than that, really going into the depth of our routine and how we work, and reanalyzing, taking it all down to the studs, and really rethinking about how we use music, how we think about using music, and so that we weren't falling into any old habits, and that we were really trying to be as fresh as possible as we looked at this brilliant new world that he's created.
Yeah, for sure. And I can't help but ask because I noticed at the end of the Pluribus credits it says this show is made by humans, and I feel like it's particularly relevant to the show's themes. I know Vince has been very outspoken about his opinions on AI, so I wanted to ask in the like film and TV composing industry, how prevalent is AI use? I know in the music industry, like AI artists are charting on billboards, so
Yeah,
I guess where is film and television and all
this
that?
is a fascinating question, and I'm unfortunately not the person to ask because I don't know any better than you. I'd be fascinated to know. Certainly, there isn't any going on in this studio at my place, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening out there, and not that it's all bad even. I'm not probably as hip or as knowledgeable to it as I should be, and obviously it is finding worming its way into everything that we do, and it's only a matter of time. So it will be interesting to see how and in what way composers use this technology, as it's been true of every advance in technology and in what we do over the years.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really curious to see where all creative industries end up going with it.
For sure.
Um, well, I believe that is all the questions I had. Thank you so much for your time, Dave. I really appreciate this interview. It's been great to talk with you.
You're welcome, Bridget. I enjoyed it. Hope you have a great day.